The title of my talk is The New Normal is Digital, and I will be expounding on the topic of digital transformation, especially its possible impact to micro, small, and medium scale enterprises in the Philippines. This is the outline of my presentation. Of course, I will start with the adverse impact of the pandemic. Then I will force participants to reimagine our situation. And this is anchored on the idea that indeed we cannot go back to the previous normal. There is a need for us to look at things in a new way. And I'm proposing, or I'm arguing, that digital transformation will be an effective lens to do this. Of course, I will allude to counterexamples such as Singapore and Estonia briefly, and I will define the possible pathways for Philippine MSMEs. So without further ado, let me just tell you a short story. Back in 2009, Swedish telecom company Ericsson started a media campaign called Vision 2020. This campaign, or the campaign back then, gathered the best minds and thinkers of the day. Prominent names such as Jeffrey Sachs, Dan Topscott, Will Stephan were all invited to give their vision of how 2020 will look like. So everybody was projecting that 2020 will be the highest growth year in human history. And perhaps what caught my attention is the sharing made by Professor Carlota Perez, where she explained that we are indeed in the middle of a golden age. This is back in, again, 2009. And she is saying that this golden age will be characterized by mainstreaming of new technologies such as Internet of Things, cloud computing, semantic technologies, among others. And she said this in the video that she created for Ericsson: if the world is not flourishing by 2020, a great opportunity would have been lost. It will be a great shame. Fast forward to 2020, we are now in the middle of the worst pandemic in 103 years, to be exact. And the global economy indeed has contracted. And the doom and gloom scenario, because of this doom and gloom scenario, thinkers today are proposing or are suggesting that we might be seeing the possible end of globalization. Even the rise of nationalism, which we can now see in terms of vaccine production. They're even saying that the world will be on a shorter leash in terms of its supply chain. And definitely we will see the securitization of public health. Well, the Philippines is not exempt from this scenario. I think in Southeast Asia, our economy will shrink the most. IMF has predicted that in 2020, it will shrink by 8.3%, and an unemployment rate of 10.4%. And the World Bank conducted a survey last July, and it reported that a huge number of firms, and I'm assuming that these are small and medium-scale enterprises, are exhibiting temporary suspension of their operations, laying off of workers, and closing of their firms. But the bright side about this is that that survey reported that almost 2/3 of the surveyed firms turned to digital solutions for sales, marketing, payment methods to adapt to this new normal. So that brings me to my question: are we seeing a paradigm shift in terms of how we use digital technologies, especially for MSMEs? Now, there's been much talk about digital transformation. Everybody is singing this tune nowadays, right? You will see government officials proposing that the Philippines adopt digital transformation. And if you try to examine these pronouncements, unfortunately, the idea is mainly buying new technologies. But if you try to dig into this concept, digital transformation is not buying new technologies. It is simply a re-examination of what is currently being done, re-examination of our business models, re-examination of our strategies, and probably might lead to cultural changes, and view or review our digital competencies in order to adapt to a new normal, such as what is happening right now. And this brings SMEs and startups to a greater prominence, because advocates of digital transformation are saying that SMEs and startups are in the best position to adopt digital transformation. Well, digital transformation can also be seen as an ecosystem. No? Aside from having the required digital infrastructure and enabling technologies such as artificial intelligence, data analytics, cloud services, high performance computing, what have you, it needs, uh, it, it also needs national policies, strategies that will guide its development, that will sustain its development. It also needs to be backed up by governance practices which encourages the participation from the private sector, from the academe, and even international participants. Now, for organizations, of course, digital transformation forces the organization to rethink its strategy, not only to use technology at is being marketed, but also to reimagine how technology can address problems and probably push organizations the next 10 years, okay? Digital transformation also forces organizations to look at its business models, how it can change its current supply chain arrangements, its value chains, change the customer experience, okay? Well, the two countries that we cited in our chapter, actually there are three countries, but for this presentation, I just use the country example of Estonia. Prior to the pandemic, this country is boasting that they have 90% of their government services online. Okay, and this country said, or experts from this country said, that these services were enabled by, aside from their digital infrastructure, each citizen was given an electronic ID card, which will allow them to avail of government services, to open new businesses, okay, and even to vote. Well, going closer to home, when you look at Singapore, prior to the pandemic, they have been already starting what they call entrepreneurship hubs. These are government-sponsored hubs that houses startups, academic institutions, researchers, venture capitalists that will explore new products and services. Okay, they even had their what they call their Jurong Innovation District, which they view as the center for their research and development. So marami nang nangyari. There are a multitude of examples that are happening related to digital transformation. Now, you ask me now, given the pandemic, what will be the possible impact of digital transformation as a concept to small and medium scale enterprises? It means that we cannot just rely on what is existing. We see now the proliferation of e-commerce applications, e-payments, online banking, but digital transformation envisions itself as more than e-commerce. It now looks at, or it proposes that digital transformation should be data-driven. It has the ability to source data from its customer or consumers, being able to profile consumer preference and transactions over a period of time. Digital transformation also calls for integration, shorter supply chains that can result to faster production, faster answering of demands and needs, faster product development. Well, more importantly, the role of government is being challenged in this new concept. No? It simply says that it should be beyond one-stop shops. We're in the Philippines, we're really fond of having one-stop shops. But yeah, why not having all of your regulatory services online and accessible through various digital devices? Um, Having a digital transformation view is a human-centric view. It looks at the skills and competencies of citizens, of individuals that will avail of these services, and perhaps push the need for greater capacity building. And last but not the least, the need for incentives to create new products and services and foster innovation. We have seen this in both the examples of Estonia and Singapore. And probably you might be wondering, is the Philippines ready for digital transformation? If you ask the World Bank, it will be an uphill battle, uphill climb for us, as we have, as the World Bank termed it, an analog economy. We are still constrained by low bandwidth or broadband penetration. We have a dismal download speed of 7 Mbps. 60% of our households lack access to the internet. And we have the highest costs of mobile broadband, okay, in Southeast Asia. One of the highest costs. You might be saying I'm the bearer of bad news. I also have good news, okay? Good news is we have good policies, okay? And you're seeing some of them right now. Okay, the area or the area of micro and small, medium enterprises. Okay, we have developed a lot of policies and laws. Okay, we have the Magna Carta, which guarantees support from government in terms of developing the capacities of MSMEs. Okay, we have recent laws such as the Go Negosyo Act, which ensures the establishment of Go Negosyo Centers for technology transfers and capacity building. We have an Innovation Startup Act, which encourages startups to venture into innovation. Okay, we have, of course, the ease of doing business, which requires the creation of business registries, and of course, last but not the least, the national ID law, the PhilSys law, which requires citizens to have an ID that will allow them to access services, preferably online services. Now, how can this work? We have laws, but it seems that these laws are mainly disjoint. Yes, that is true. Okay, we need really to re-examine these laws and try to use the lens of digital transformation. Okay, in order for us to use these existing laws to create what we call digital a DX enabled, a digital transformation enabled Philippine MSMEs. How can we do that? Okay, first we must know the local and national needs and create a digital transformation vision for MSMEs. This requires basically very basic, the creation, development of a national MSME portal that can host MSMEs and integrate both supply and demand chains. Okay? We are also advocating in our chapter the creation of a data governance regime, a regime that can manage databases and business registries. You cannot find this in the existing laws. Okay? We also challenge institutions, the private sector, the academia, government, and entrepreneurs for emerging roles. What will be your roles in this new normal, which we believe is digital? Of course, we need to embrace new technologies in order to leverage them for the benefit of MSMEs. And last but not the least, create a secure, digital and information infrastructure. These are broad strokes. We need not to start from scratch. We have a long-term plan called Ambition 2030 or 2040, which we can use. We need to create a roadmap for this. Okay? If we are serious about digitalization, digital transformation for MSMEs, we need a roadmap. We need to identify major actors, major players for this. We need to unleash the innovative capacities of Filipinos. This is my last slide, second to the last slide. What are the possible pathways for Philippine SMEs? Of course, needs and determined context of MSMEs. We need to harmonize policies, as I mentioned in my previous slide, develop an online, a single entry system portal, open new opportunities to create innovative and digitized MSMEs, and look at how we can sustain digital transformation initiatives in MSMEs. I would like to thank my co-authors, Dr. Michelle Ching from the College of Computer Studies and Ms. Samantha Ching from the Political Science Department. Thank you very much. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.